Good afternoon and good morning to our colleagues on the West Coast. My name is Akshay Jakatar, and I would like to welcome you all to the webinar using the School Emergency Operations Plan Framework to support bullying prevention efforts. This webinar is hosted by the REMS TA Center and the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Safe and Healthy Students. Before we begin, let's review a few brief housekeeping items. The following tips will help ensure you are able to download the files, hear the audio, request technical assistance, and ask questions during the event. To download a copy of the presentation slides and the supporting resource sheet, use the Downloads box on the right side of your screen. Select the name of the handout and click the Download Files button. And as a reminder, there is no dial-in for today's event. Audio is available via the link provided. If you're experiencing difficulty hearing the audio stream, please turn up your computer speaker volume at this time. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please contact the REMS TA Center at info@remstacenter.org. You may also request technical assistance using the Q&A tool. If you would like to pose questions to our presenters during the webinar and are not able to do so via the Q&A feature on your screen, please email your questions to info@remstacenter.org. And again, we invite you to pose questions to our presenters throughout the session. Questions will be answered in the order in which they appear and as time permits following the presentation. I would now like to take a moment to introduce our presenters, Ms. Madeline Sullivan and Ms. Rita Foy-Moss of the Office of Safe and Healthy Students, and Dr. Gina Khan of the Hamden-Wilbraham Regional School District in Massachusetts. We are also joined today by Ms. Erica Hill of the REMS TA Center, who will be providing technical support during the event. Let's briefly review the objectives of today's meeting. First, we will learn from Ms. Sullivan more about bullying and cyberbullying, as well as integrating bullying prevention into a school EOP. We will then learn from Ms. Moss more about measuring school climate and promoting safe and healthy learning environments as part of Step 2 of the 6-step planning process. We will then hear insight from Dr. Khan on integrating bullying prevention efforts within her school district in Massachusetts. And here's our agenda for today, so let's get started. As a reminder, we will summarize all the resources and tools shared during this presentation in Part 5. The resources are also available in the resource sheet included within the handouts pod on your screen, and a few resources are hyperlinked within the web links box. We will conclude today's session with the 10-minute Q&A, during which we invite all attendees to pose questions to our presenters. So what is bullying? StopBullying.gov defines bullying as unwanted aggressive behavior among school-age children that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. The behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. Bullying includes actions such as making threats, spreading rumors, attacking someone physically or verbally, and excluding someone from a group on purpose. And what is cyberbullying? Cyberbullying is bullying that takes place using electronic technology. Electronic technology includes devices and equipment such as cell phones, computers, and tablets, as well as communication tools including social media sites, text messages, chat, and websites. Examples of cyberbullying include mean text messages or emails, rumors sent by email or posted on social networking sites, and embarrassing pictures, videos, websites, or fake profiles. Bullying is unwanted aggressive behavior among school-aged children that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. As we mentioned, the behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. Both kids who are bullied and those who bully others may have serious lasting problems. Types of bullying includes verbal, relational, and physical, and it may occur in a classroom, hallways, lunchroom, bus, or playground. Research shows that in-person bullying peaks in middle school and then continues falling through high school. Bullying can threaten students' physical and emotional safety at school and can negatively impact their ability to learn. The best way to address bullying is to stop it before it starts. There are a number of things school staff can do to make schools safer and prevent bullying. When adults respond quickly and consistently to bullying behavior, they send the message that it is not acceptable. Research shows this can stop bullying behavior over time. There are simple steps adults can take to stop bullying on the spot and keep children safe. This may include intervening immediately, separating the kids involved, making sure everyone is safe, meeting any immediate medical or mental health needs, staying calm and reassuring the kids involved, including bystanders, and modeling respectful behavior when intervening. Let's now examine how to integrate bullying prevention within a school EOP. I would like to introduce Ms. Madeline Sullivan. Madeline is an education program specialist in the Office of Safe and Healthy Students at the Department of Education. She serves as contracting officer's representative for the REMS TA Center, which provides free training and support for building school preparedness in regards to safety, security, and emergency management. The REMS TA Center supports schools, school districts, and IHEs in the development of high-quality EOPs and comprehensive emergency management planning efforts. Prior to joining the federal workforce, Madeline provided technical assistance and pro-social skill development, violence prevention, and school emergency management, also having served as a special educator. I'm very pleased to introduce Madeline Sullivan. Madeline?
Thank you, Akshay, and thank you everyone for participating today. So the work that schools do to prevent bullying and to protect victims is very similar to all the work that goes into developing and maintaining school emergency operations plans, which we call school EOPs for short. Both work to create safe school environments. Just as you work to prevent bullying, you also work to have supports in place for responding to incidents of bullying and for supporting the victims of bullying. Working with the EOP planning team will enhance bullying efforts by helping to bring together all those who have roles and responsibilities, expertise, and resources on both bullying and emergency management and preparedness. A school EOP is developed using a systematic framework, which we call the six-step process. Furthermore, the framework allows for the flexibility and supports an all-hazards approach. This means it takes into consideration a wide variety of hazards and threats that might impact and disrupt safe and healthy conditions for learning. As you can see, a school EOP supports all efforts to address natural hazards such as wildfires and floods, technological hazards such as power failures, biological hazards such as seasonal flu and food contaminations, and adversarial, incidental, and human-caused threats, including suicide, trafficking, and bullying. And as the planning team addresses more and more threats and hazards, they will see commonalities in the necessary actions needed to address them. This helps strengthen both the school EOP and bullying initiatives. Just like bullying, emergency planning works to build capacity before, during, and after possible incidents. And emergency planning means focusing on prevention and protection as much as mitigation, response, and recovery. This is how we increase preparedness. By integrating bullying with emergency planning, schools are helping ensure that everyone, students, staff, and families, are educated about bullying and are aware of the steps they can take, not only to prevent bullying, but to respond on the spot. Here we have the six-step planning process for developing and maintaining school EOPs. Please know this planning process is designed to be flexible and iterative so that it can be adapted to each unique school and school district. It can take into account each of your unique bullying initiatives and the unique planning teams. In step one, each school should have a bullying prevention coordinator and possibly a team who handles bullying. The bullying prevention coordinator can be on the planning team. And then in step two, the team will conduct a climate assessment and work to learn specifics about how bullying shows itself at school, such as the individuals being victimized, as well as the types, frequency, and locations of bullying that's happening in your school. Our colleague Rita, who administers the National Center on Safe and Supportive Learning Environments, will describe to you she will describe to you Ed's school climate surveys and the school climate improvement resource package. This assessment will help you customize your bullying initiative to the unique needs of your school. In Step 3, based on the climate assessment data collected in Step 2, the planning team will select goals and objectives. Goals are the team's more broad vision of what the school wants to accomplish, and objectives have more measurable outcomes. Sample goals might be prevent bullying from occurring, or protect students from bullying, or support students who've been bullied. And sample objectives might be provide students with anti-bullying training, or provide training to staff on recognizing signs of bullying, or teach students how to respond to bullying. In Step 4, the courses of action outline all of the specific steps that the school will take. For example, using the assessment data, the planning team might select a matching prevention program and set specific steps to take to protect and support a student who's been bullied. As the plan is developed, policies and processes supporting your bullying initiatives can be formalized, including requirements for the reporting process if that is mandated in your state or district. This helps to clarify all partners' roles and responsibilities to prevent bullying at school and in the community. Furthermore, by approving the plan, everyone is agreeing to the plan and their contributions. In Step 6, our efforts are going to focus on raising awareness to bullying, what it looks like, and resources to help those who are bullied. Additionally, the school will provide training on its bullying initiatives and programs. It's important to remember that this process is continual and the steps are iterative. The school EOP can be updated based on lessons learned, actual incidents, and new assessment results. When we take a closer look at Step 2, which is titled Understand the Situation, there are numerous types of assessments the planning team may use, and we generally talk about them in 4 different categories, with the first one being site assessment, another one being the behavioral threat assessment, and another one being capacity assessment, and the last one being culture and climate assessment. For more information on culture and climate assessments, I'm going to turn it now to my colleague, Rita Foy-Moss, who runs the National Center on Safe and Supportive Learning Environments.
Thank you, Madeline. And good afternoon to some, and good morning to others. And I also wanted to take a moment to just thank my fellow presenters and the RIMS TA Center for this opportunity to share some information about a new set of resources and resource tools to help schools and planning teams lay a foundation for safe environments for learning and student academic success, as well as helping to develop an EOP. About 5.5 months ago, excuse me, the Department of Education released a first-of-its-kind set of measurements to support safe and enriched learning environments for all students and staff. I might add that these resource tools can also be included as key components for bullying prevention and in emergency operations planning. The new resources include the Education School Climate Surveys, the acronym is EDSCLS, and a quick guide on making school climate improvements. Additional resources as part of the School Climate Improvement Resource Package will be released later this month and throughout the fall of this year. And they will be posted on the National Center on Safe Supportive Learning Environment Technical Assistance Center website. And that will be provided later in this presentation. The resources were developed for the Department of Education by the American Institutes for Research and the National Center for Safe Supportive Learning Environments, which are both operated by AIR. The survey and accompanying resource materials will be, as I said, posted on that website, which will be provided later. But first, I'd like to provide you with a bit of background. The school climate surveys and resources were developed in response to an executive action from the administration to help address issues of safety as well as issues impacting the improvement of school climate. The U.S. Department of Education provided support for the development of this school climate measurement platform with the intent to make available valid and reliable measures of school climate, as well as a set of resource materials to assist users in analyzing the data. We know that positive school climates foster trust, respect, communication, and cooperation among students, school staff, parents and guardians, and the community. Research has also shown us that students learn best when they are in environments in which they feel safe, supported, challenged, and accepted. Adults in the same environment also perform their duties and responsibilities best when they feel safe and supported. Here are a few exciting features about the new ED School Climate Survey. The surveys can be administered at the state, district, or school level, and there are 5 surveys, one designed for middle and high school students in grades 6 through 12, another for teachers, another for non-instructional staff, another for administrators, and a final one for parents and guardians. For the student surveys, administrators have the option of linking the school climate survey respondents' data to other student data sources, such as disciplinary data or incident data. These surveys will enable states, districts, and schools to collect and act on reliable, nationally validated school climate data in real time and provide user-friendly reports. Surveys are posted on a web-based platform. They're easy to download and then to upload directly to the data system that is going to be used to administer the survey. Districts and schools administering the surveys can store the data on their state, district, or school-based data systems with access only to the authorized users. The student, instructional, and non-instructional staff survey takes about 20 to 30 minutes to complete, and the parent-guardian survey takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. For the student and parent surveys, respondents can toggle back and forth between English and Spanish versions at any point while taking the survey if needed. All of the surveys are available at no cost. They're free. So the Department of Education will not have access to the data from the schools and districts administering the survey. Again, the data will be available only to the authorized users of the survey. Just to give you a little bit more information about the survey, the surveys, they target, each of them target 3 core domains: engagement, safety, and environment. There are 13 subdomains which are listed on the slide before you, and they include areas such as instructional environment, school participation, relationships, emotional safety, physical safety, bullying and cyberbullying, physical health, mental health, cultural and linguistic competence, substance abuse, and discipline. And you see there are much more, but just to name a few. If by chance you're wondering how many questions are included in the suite of surveys on bullying, there are a number of items, 24 across the surveys, to address bullying areas such as bullying as a problem, bullying related to race, ethnicity, religion, cyberbullying, bullying related to sexuality, bullying related to physical and mental disability. So with the student survey, there are about 73 items total on that survey. For the teacher questionnaire, there are 82 items. For the parent-guardian, there are 43. For the non-instructional staff, there are 82. For the administrators, there are about 21 additional items. So with that, that gives you or provides for you some information about the survey and the time frame in which it can be administered, as well as the type of items, particularly related to bullying, that are included. So with respect to the School Climate Improvement Resource Package, which includes the set of materials that will help the user better interpret the data, there are a number of items: a reference manual, an action guide for a range of stakeholders, data interpretation guides, online practice modules, customized list of resource items based on an assessment, and pointers for improving school climate based on the use of an assessment. And I think at the end of this presentation, a list of resources from the TA Center will be provided, as well as a set of links that will guide you directly to the survey, to view the survey and the survey items, to actually download the survey, and also links to the different resource materials that I've identified in this presentation. So with that, if at the end you have any additional questions, please let me know. And now I'll turn it over to Gina.
Thank you so much, Rita, for that presentation. We appreciate you sharing that information with us. Here's just a quick look at the agenda. We'll learn now more about the efforts of a specific school district, which is the Hampden-Wilbraham Regional School District in Massachusetts, to prevent bullying and addressing bullying within their EOP. I would like to take a moment to introduce Dr. Gina Khan. Gina is a licensed school psychologist and prevention specialist who has worked in the Hampden-Wilbraham Regional School District for over 25 years. Her school-based program development and management experiences have concentrated on strategies to improve school climate and safety and the integration of school and community behavioral health supports for students and families. As her district's Safe and Healthy Students Programs Director, she has coordinated several of Hampden-Wilbraham's grant-funded initiatives, including 3 Readiness and Emergency Management for Schools projects, a Safe and Healthy Students program, and currently a School Climate Transformation grant from the Office of Safe and Healthy Students. She is also an officer of the Board of Directors for Ricks Place Center for Grieving Children in Wilbraham, Massachusetts. This time I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Gina Khan. Gina?
Thanks, Akshay, and Madeline and Rita, and our webinar participants today. I am so pleased to be here to have an opportunity to talk about the practice-based view of synchronizing bullying prevention with emergency operations plans. And I think as we proceed with the conversation, how important the dynamic processes of assessment that Madeline and Rita have shared, and how valuable those tools can be in the larger process. Hampden-Wilbraham is located in western Massachusetts. Our concerns are fairly typical of a suburban New England town. Aging infrastructure that creates safety challenges in the physical plant of our buildings, and increasing economic stressors both for our district and our families. Over 19% of our student population are now eligible for free and reduced lunch, compared to 11% in 2010, so that we are definitely seeing increase in the economic stress on our families. Our emergency operations framework is a continually evolving process. It's been developed around the long-held belief that physical and social-emotional well-being are fundamental to school safety, and our district safety agenda has been one of continuous improvement, meaning that we are trying on an ongoing basis to identify concerns and seek strategies to address them. And as Akshay said, in seeking these best practices, we have indeed been fortunate recipients of federal resources that have helped us to promote these efforts, not only with funding, but with tools and technical assistance. And we will hear a little bit more about the value of those opportunities when we get to our resource section at the end of the presentation. So on the next slide, we see a little snippet of the Hampden-Wilbraham Bullying Prevention Plan. And the foundation that I described previously helps us to strive for a safe and secure and healthy learning environment, free from bullying and cyberbullying, that supports positive social, emotional, and behavioral health and well-being so that all of our students can be successful. Articulating and maintaining an effective bullying prevention plan is a basic component of that effort. And as we can see on the next slide, and as we've also heard from Madeline in her previous section, bullying is a significant problem for schools, yet at the same time, our schools are a critical piece of the puzzle, of the solution. So weaving bullying prevention and intervention through all systems and all practices in our schools, from a well-maintained physical plant to high-quality instruction, strengthen these efforts. The EOP planning process provides the ideal framework to build on, and in the next few slides, I will be providing you some examples of how these principles and steps in the planning process have been used to guide and support bullying prevention in Hampden-Wilbraham. One of the first principles of EOP planning is supported by leadership, and certainly for all aspects of emergency operations planning to be successful, they must have support from the highest level of leadership. This ensures that all the wheels turn in the same direction. In Massachusetts, similar to all 50 states, anti-bullying legislation has brought the issue to statewide priority. And it's ensured that districts and schools must review and update their bullying prevention and intervention plans and anti-bullying policies, and inform school staff and students and parents of these plans and policies, as well as any changes that come along. Subsequently, at the district level, leadership is extremely important because it ensures that procedures are developed, reviewed, and disseminated. At the district level, leadership also engages in the allocation of appropriate resources. This includes professional development, supporting staffing, such as school-based counselors, and selecting and securing evidence-based prevention curriculum, again, very key to the overall efforts. At the building level, leadership, again, ensures fidelity to the selected strategies, those evidence-based practices and interventions. And at the building level, we make sure that all staff and students are appropriately trained, that we are maintaining effective parent communication, and that we're keeping our reporting procedures and policies on track. We're also making sure that positive behavioral supports are in place. The second planning principle is the use of assessments to customize emergency operations plans. And both Madeline and Rita and Akshay have talked a little bit about that in their respective presentations. This slide depicts the type of assessments that are typically included in our planning process and examples of how these fit in to our bullying prevention efforts in our district. First and foremost is the site assessment, and we refer to this as our annual building safety audit. This is a thorough, multidimensional review of school safety assets, threats, and hazards. It is here that we ask if there are features of the physical plant that contribute to bullying or bullying prevention, such as the number, location, and positioning of cameras. Have we identified areas of the building that are difficult to monitor? School climate assessment, as Rita described the importance of this, and some tools that are available, is invaluable in our bullying prevention approach. In our district, we use varying sources of data, the number of discipline referrals, the number of the data specific to school counselors, school nurses, monitoring absences and tardies. We'll look at this a little more closely in a next slide, but here we just want to note that it's key in the planning process. Threat assessment, in the broadest sense, we think about threat assessment as procedures that we use to identify students at risk of harm to self or others. In the context of bullying, our threat assessment procedures help us identify students at risk for bullying or being bullied, and to create and review the safety plans that result from these assessments. And then capacity assessment. Do we have sufficient time and tools allocated to the process, for example, for professional development? And are we connecting to other prevention strategies and resources that might be in place, including those community resources? One thing that becomes a little clearer as we look at this slide is the relationship among the components of the planning process, as all of these assessments would not be viable or effective without the support of leadership. In the next slide, I would like to share some of the specific sources of data that we use. We had looked quickly in the previous slide at climate assessment, and here is a closer look. While our district is in the process of reviewing and moving towards incorporating instruments that will help us more specifically measure school climate, such as those dynamic tools described by Rita, in our current practice we use several existing measures as indicators. These are some examples. While they can provide information about individual students, we see great value in what they reveal about gaps in our core instruction or our core services. They also provide us ways of looking at equity and disparity issues among subgroups of students. This is comparable to the way that we would look at academic achievement. And again, we try to keep these systems in a very parallel, front and center approach. Another step in the planning process on the next slide, we look at providing for the whole school community. This slide depicts the data, systems, and practices that combine to support bullying prevention within the whole school community. You will see that this resembles the tiered systems model that is a very effective way of ensuring that the needs of an entire school community are considered and addressed. As we have begun to implement our multi-tiered system of behavioral support in Hampden-Wilbraham, we started to ask ourselves key questions. How do we set explicit expectations for behavior, and where and when do we teach those skills that students need to meet those expectations, including the behaviors that prevent bullying? For us, this has included ongoing work to adopt systems such as responsive classroom, which some may be familiar with in terms of morning meetings where classroom community can be built on a daily basis. And then specific bullying prevention curricula such as Second Step or Aggressors, Victims, and Bystanders, and using these with fidelity. At Tier 2, we have looked at our procedures for consistent enforcement and additional support for students at higher risk. And of course, at Tier 3, we want to review the systems that are in place for things like functional behavioral assessments, safety planning procedures, and monitoring and follow-up protocols. Another important step in the planning process, considering all settings and times. The Massachusetts Bullying Prevention Law underscores the importance of this aspect as it refers to on-school related locations, activities, and technology that can contribute to creating a hostile school environment or infringe or disrupt student rights. And so with that law and also with our approach, we want to look at the 360-degree view of the school and the school day. So this slide is self-explanatory, but it does emphasize that vigilance in bullying prevention is a comprehensive task. Our step 5 in the planning process, a collaborative process for all stakeholders. In my comments to this far, I've referred to typical stakeholders, parents, students, teachers, administrators. But effective emergency operations planning requires collaboration with all stakeholders. And in the context of bullying prevention, we work very closely with our local and county law enforcement partners, such as our police and our district attorney's office, and organizations such as our local YMCA, our early childhood centers, and mental health agencies. We are able to share training, we are able to share support resources, and we are able to share intervention plans and resources. And this would connect to the before, during, and after aspects that we saw in Madeline's previous slide. This next slide is an example of some of the various data points that we use to inform our efforts. The assessment phase or emergency operations planning allows us to fine-tune data collection. As we look at this slide, the key point I would like to make is that data are valuable for benchmarking, but we have to be willing to dig a little deeper to make sure that we do not overlook any aspect of bullying in our schools. For example, we know that having student engagement and a positive adult connection is an important protective factor in all prevention efforts, and Rita referenced these things again as she talked about the domains in the climate assessment. It's particularly important in strengthening the reporting aspect of bullying prevention and intervention So we have to consistently look at that measure of adult connection in our youth risk behavior survey around students' belief that there is an adult in school that they would talk to if they had a problem. But we also want to look at the percentage of students that are engaged in extracurricular activities and the frequency with which our counselors get involved in the regular classroom activities such as classroom morning meetings. In terms of students' perceptions of bullying, another data point that you see on this slide, we need to triangulate these data with other sources such as office disciplinary reports or specific bullying incident reports, school safety resource officer input. And very important and very helpful is our mechanisms like student focus groups that allow us to dig deeper and really understand from the perspective of the student experience. The EOP process gives us the perfect mechanism to map, install, sustain, and improve our bullying prevention efforts, to recognize our challenges, and to set goals for improvement. And in this final slide, we're going to take a look at what some of those current goals are right now for Hampden-Wilbraham. We do face continuous challenges. We would definitely like to increase the percentage of students that report that they have an adult in the school that they would go to if they have a problem. So looking for those opportunities to increase positive adult connection. We also know based on other survey response that parents and guardians need help with keeping up with new threats, particularly regarding social media. And to strengthen all these efforts collectively, it's important that we look for common threads in our substance abuse, violence, bullying, suicide prevention strategies so that we are working smarter towards the same basic skills, resilience, problem solving, help seeking, and a sense of community responsibility for all of our students, our staff, and all members of our school community. Ache, I'm ready for your next slide.
And thank you so much for that presentation, Gina. We really appreciate you sharing your expertise and insight with us today. Let's now briefly review some of the resources and tools available to school and district practitioners to address bullying prevention efforts. As Rita mentioned earlier, the National Center on Safe Supportive Learning Environments offers customized technical assistance or direct assistance and training to several stakeholders: state administrators, personnel in institutions of higher education, district and school administrators, teachers, school support staff, communities and families, and students to improve conditions for learning. The center primarily assists with the measurement or assessment of conditions for learning and the implementation of evidence-based programmatic interventions. The center can also help address disruptive behaviors such as bullying, harassment and violence, and substance abuse. For more information on the ED School Climate Surveys or School Climate Improvement Resource Package that Rita mentioned, please visit the Nestle TA Center website. The available resources include information on engagement, safety, environment, in addition to school climate implementation. Currently featured hot topics include responding to trauma in K-12 schools, social emotional learning, and response and resiliency. StopBullying.gov provides information from various government agencies on what bullying is, what cyberbullying is, who is at risk, and how you can prevent and respond to bullying. The StopBullying.gov coordinates closely with the Federal Partners in Bullying Prevention Steering Committee, an interagency effort led by the Department of Education that works to coordinate policy, research, and communications on bullying topics. The federal partners include representatives from the U.S. Departments of Agriculture, Defense, Education, Health and Human Services, the Interior, and Justice, as well as the Federal Trade Commission and the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. The resources available include the following: a continuing education course on taking a public health approach to bullying, a bullying prevention training module presentation, which is a research-based resource that can help you lead bullying prevention efforts in your local community, a community action toolkit that includes materials to create a community event using the research, ideas, and bullying prevention and response strategies that are put forth in the training module, The user guides, these are tailored to 11 audiences that play a critical role in bullying prevention and include information for delivering a training. And finally, StopBullying.gov also maintains a map containing the anti-bullying laws and policies for each state. Click on the map accessible on the stopbullying.gov/laws page to learn more. The REMS TA Center supports schools, school districts, and IHEs with their community partners in the development of high-quality EOPs and comprehensive emergency management planning efforts. Established in October of 2004 and administered by the Office of Safe and Healthy Students, the REMS TA Center provides a hub of information, resources, training, and services in the field of school and higher ed emergency management planning. For more information, we invite you to contact the REMS TA Center with questions or requests for technical assistance at info@remstacenter.org or through the toll-free telephone line 855-781-REMS. The hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We also encourage you to visit the TA Center website for additional information about TA Center resources, including to join our community of practice. We will now take a few questions from our presenters. We invite you to post questions to our presenters using the Q&A tool on the lower right side of your screen. And we've received our first question. This question is on the Ed School Climate Survey, and the question is for Rita. Rita, can you please tell us how many questions are included about bullying in the Ed School Climate Survey? And the second question follow-up is, can the survey be translated to Spanish?
Yes, there are 24 questions across the 5 surveys. And those questions target the area of bullying as a problem, bullying related to race, ethnicity, and religion, cyberbullying, bullying related to sexuality, and bullying related to physical and mental disability. And what was the second part of the question?
And Rita, thank you so much. The second part was, are the surveys available in Spanish?
They're not available in Spanish per se, but if needed, there is a way of toggling back and forth for those who need it in Spanish to be able to administer and take the survey.
Great, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And this next question is for Gina. Gina, you mentioned that in your school district you have safety teams as well as school climate teams. Can you tell us more about these and if they're different or the same?
Thanks. Yes, and Madeline also talked about the desirability of, say, a bullying prevention team. So I think this is a great question because these teams, if you will, have concentric functions. Our safety team is probably the umbrella effort, and we have a district safety team as well as specific safety teams in each building. And then within that safety team, we have individuals. Maybe the best analogy would be like a subcommittee almost of the overall safety agenda, who are looking more at the school climate, the school climate transformations project that is currently underway, and all aspects of that. And then around bullying prevention, we would want to make sure that the function of that was mapped within either that school climate team process or that safety team process. But it's important that the function of eyes on a specific issue or concern is defined, and while the individual teams can certainly have the primary goals and responsibilities, that they always come back to that overarching school safety, school climate framework, because it really all branches from there.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Again, just as a reminder, please post questions to our presenters using the Q&A tool. And if you have any difficulty accessing that, please feel free to email your questions to info@remstascenter.org. Gina, this next question is for you as well. You had mentioned conducting site assessments, and can you please tell us what aspects of the site assessment process you have found to be the most relevant when it comes to bullying prevention efforts?
I think this is an interesting application of our site assessment process. And much of it, as I had described, has relevance to bullying prevention. But maybe some of the most relevant observations occur in that visual scan that goes along with our site assessment. So I can give you a couple of examples of that. As part of our site assessment process, we have a team that has been trained to do the site assessment. It's a multidisciplinary team. It includes individuals from our community, first responders. It includes individuals from our district safety team and individuals from the building safety team. So we have different perspectives as well as maybe sets of eyes that are not as familiar with the building and sets of eyes that are very familiar with the building. And the combination of that is more likely to recognize the comprehensive observations that we hope to make in these assessments. So in that visual scan, we would spend some time looking at bus arrival and bus dismissal. And the way in which students arrive at school and the way in which they leave school can be extremely instructive in terms of how effective our efforts at teaching positive student interaction are. The same with observation during the lunch period, because this is another area of time where there's a little less structure and a few more opportunities perhaps for students to get themselves into situations that could in fact lead to bullying. On the playground, again, another environment in which there's typically less structure, and we would want to observe things like not only what the student interactions look like and sound like, but also the level of supervision. Does it appear that there are eyes on the students? Are those adults that are supervising actively engaged? So these are a few examples of the way that those site assessments have been informative in our bullying prevention efforts within our emergency operations process.
Thank you very much for sharing that. That's very helpful. We've received another question. This pertains to activating the emergency operations plan, and I would like to invite Madeline to respond to this. The question is, when should a school activate their EOP for a bullying incident, and will every bullying incident warrant activating the EOP? Madeline?
Thank you, Akshay. In regards to activating the EOP, I'm wondering if the person is referencing the incident command, which you know is scalable based upon the incident and the number of persons and resources required to address it. So in general, when we write our EOPs, we find that there are these common functions that we're going to be addressing no matter the emergency or likely in multiple emergencies, such as communications. And then we're going to find some functions or courses of actions or things we're going to do that are going to be very, very specific to the unique hazard or threat. So to oversimplify that statement, we're going to have a different response for an earthquake than we are for a flood. And so when it comes to bullying, if we go to our annexes and we look at that specific one relating to bullying, and we really do it to its full spirit, and do all of those efforts in advance on the before section, and we train folks, whether it be students or staff, and we teach them to report, and we really work on activities to promote that trusting relationship with adults. So in that case, if a child was to report to an adult, the adult can follow the agreed upon or directed courses of action and go upward to reporting, as well as taking immediate steps to intervene if that's applicable, and so on. So did I answer the question?
Yes, thank you so much, Madeline. That's very helpful. We have time for a couple more questions. We actually have one for Rita, if you wouldn't mind. This again pertains to the EdSchool Climate Survey. And the question is, how much time is needed to administer the surveys? So either for administrators, teachers, for non-instructional staff, students, or parents. What is the time commitment required?
Yes, this is Rita, and I'm happy to respond. Excuse me. For the parent survey, hold on. The student, instructional, and non-instructional staff surveys take about 20 to 30 minutes. And the parent and guardian surveys take about 10 to 15 minutes to complete.
Perfect, thank you.
Is there another part?
Just to confirm, sorry, yes, there's. Does the Department of Education have access to data from any of the surveys?
No, they will not. The data will only be accessible and reported directly to the server or the system at which the survey is uploaded and administered from. So only the schools and the districts will have access to that. The report is generated and provided to the district and the state or district system that is used for administering the survey. That's where the data will be housed, and the authorized user will only have access to it.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you so much to Madeline, Rita, and Gina for sharing your expertise and insight with us today. And thank you so much to all our attendees for attending this webinar. For more information and resources, please refer to the resource list in the handouts pod on your screen. And if you would like to view an archive of today's event, an archive will be made available on the REMS TA Center website in approximately 10 business days. Please do not hesitate to contact the REMS TA Center with any questions on the information we've shared today. This concludes our webinar. Have a wonderful afternoon.